my name is Mayana, and since you guys liked my last discussion video that I did, I thought it would be really fun to do why I don't read YA anymore. A lot of you asked for me to film this video. I've been a YA reader, but a few years ago, I want to say like last year, a publishing company like posted me and they were promoting me, and they promoted me as someone who reads YA, and I thought that was really interesting because I haven't really read as much YA since I first started BookTube. I started BookTube when I was about 20 turning 21, and like I don't think that like adults shouldn't read YA, but I was just trying to transition into the genres that I knew I would love. I knew that YA wasn't gonna be my genre forever. Like I'm not gonna be in that age range forever, and I don't think that just because you aren't in that age range you shouldn't read the books. I just knew that like YA wasn't gonna be my thing forever. So I finally started, I remember I started reading like adult romance books, and I had the time of my life, and then I started reading adult fantasy, and it is my favorite genre. I now read a bunch of other genres, like I read literary fiction, I read thrillers, sometimes I read historical books. Like I read a little bit of everything now, and I wouldn't be doing that if it wasn't for my love of YA when I first joined BookTube. But I just feel like over the years, the past few years, I've noticed that in the booktubers that I'm watching, they are starting to transition out of YA and starting to find the genres that they'll like. And I'm starting to notice that like even a lot of my subscribers are like starting to read less YA, and like I'm starting to get subscribers who read adult and genres that I read now. I don't really read YA as much anymore, and I'm trying to like stop reading YA completely, but they have so many good like ideas that like I think I'll love. And I don't want to say that like I don't think that like I don't not read YA because it doesn't have smut. Like adult fantasy, they don't have good romance. When I want a good romance, I go and read fantasy romance. When I want to read good smut, I go read smut. Like I don't read this YA novel and love this couple and be like, oh my gosh, like I wish this had smut, you know? And like I don't think that like I love gore, I love violence. I am a horror movie girly at the end of the day. I love horror. I'm actually like, it's really interesting because I'm really good with horror like movies and TV shows, but like I'm not well read in the horror genre. And, like I am starting to be pretty goodly read in the genre, but like I love gore and violence. And one of my favorite like movies is the DC animated universe movies, because they are gory and violent, and for some cartoon movies or animated movies, they are even worse than Multiverse of Madness. I remember when I watched Multiverse of Madness, it was so gory and violent. I was like, I love this. And y'all probably like, what does that have to do with anything? I love violence, I love gore, and obviously in YA you can't really promote that or write that. So when I read YA, I don't expect those things, but I do read a book and I'm like, oh my gosh, this book would be so good if it could get like really dark and like gritty and like into the violence. And like that's why I like grimdark. That's why I like grimdark fantasies, because that is what gets into like what I like, what I love. And I've noticed like okay, YA contemporary. When I joined BookTube, I did not read YA contemporary like when I started filming my own videos, because I had already lost my love for that genre. Like that had already went out the window. That's why I knew that when like the YA fantasy books weren't gonna last for long, so I was trying to read as many fantasy books as I could, because I had already stopped liking YA contemporary. But last year I read YA contemporary, like YA contemporary books that like were popular before 2017, and I loved so many of them. They were fun. And then I read some YA contemporaries that were written with after 2017, and I read some that had just came out last year, and they weren't the same. They were not the same things. And like yes, I'm happy that we're like more diverse and all those things, but like I feel like YA contemporary had lost its fun. And also this could also just be me. I'm not in high school. Why do I care about reading? Not why do I care, but like it's not, I'm not in high school. Like I don't know what it's like to be in high school. Like I have been out of high school as long as it took for someone to start high school and end it, and then for someone to start high school again. Like my brother is about to start high school this year, like when the summer's over. So it's like I don't know what it's like to be in high school anymore, and like I don't know how they talk and like all this stuff, and like, but I do know that like in old YA they were never trying to make their characters talk like how kids that in 2017 were talking. Like they were just talking, they didn't throw in slang. Honestly, it was hard to find a cell phone in like YA books, which I kind of love. Whereas new YAs, like they want to talk like TikTok talk and like all this stuff, which dates the books honestly, and it doesn't make the book good to read. Like Simon versus the Homo sapiens agenda, I have never reread that book, and I'm scared to reread it because it has so many pop culture references. I hate pop culture references in the book because it automatically dates the book. It automatically lets me know that like I could read this book now and it would not, like they're not talking the same way, these things are not popular. Like pop culture moves very fast, trends move very fast. Within 24 hours, if you are not up on that trend, sometimes you just miss out on it. There's nothing else to say. So with YA contemporary, like when you write pop culture references, I noticed, and I'm saying this all to say that with the YA contemporary books that I have read that have came out post 2017, I find that they all have pop culture references. Like that has become a popular thing. They have like cell phones and things like that, which is fine. But when you're like, yeah, my iPhone 11 Pro 12 Max, 2 years from now, nobody's gonna care. Nobody's gonna give a fuck. I'm probably not even gonna remember what kind of phone that was, what it looked like. You know what I'm saying? Like if somebody's like, I have an iPhone 5C, and I'll remember what an iPhone 5C, because that changed the world when that came out. But you know what I'm trying to say. Like they like, I have an iPhone 6, I'm gonna be like, what does a 6 look like? Like that have the button on there? Like, you know what I'm trying to say? And like even like when they use like popular phrases, first of all, most of these phrases are stolen from AAVE. Don't even let me get that. Start from there. Most of like the trends on TikTok are stolen from black people. So once you put those in your books and it's not a black character in there and it's not a black author, automatically no to me. And then they use these phrases and it's like, okay, well, phrases come and go. Like I read one YA novel and it just came out last year. It was a new release of that year, and I read it and they had a phrase in there and I was like, this phrase is already dying down. Like nobody's really saying this anymore, you know? And then also like, I don't know how writing works, so like I feel like you could write a book, like I could write a book this year and it might not come out for 2 years. So say I have a phrase in there and that phrase dies down, I've already dated the book. So a reason why I don't like YA contemporary is because a lot of times they use pop culture references and it dates the book. Now for YA fantasy, so I'm just gonna say, I think YA fantasy is boring. Like I read so many YA fantasy books and they're all pretty much the same. They have the same ideas, they follow the same structures. They want to be like Sarah J Maas's and Holly Black's and Cassandra Clare's, and that's fine, but they're always really boring. They don't have any plots. It's like these authors have ideas and they don't have any plots, and it's not always the case. Like they don't always want to be like Sarah J Maas's and Holly Black's and Cassandra Clare's, because then you have like Caraval, which I just read recently and I had to do a rant review on it. I hated that book. It had insta love tropes, like, and sometimes the tropes just don't work for me. Like sometimes like they're heavily focused on romance and I don't care about the romance, and then they have these characters that are like really flat and one-dimensional, and this might be because of the publishers, but they're pushing out these books and there's like, these books are like, the characters are flat, they're uninteresting, they're not funny, the romances are boring, the character dynamics are whack, and it's like, it's nothing that I really care about anymore. And I also feel like this is more so on publishers, because I have been saying this for a long time, but I feel like new adult, I mean new adult technically, it's not technically a genre, but like if you go on Goodreads and you look up the tags, you can click on new adult and a bunch of books will pop up. So people are, rather new adult is a genre or not, people are making it a genre and people are making their new adult, and that makes me happy because I am in the new adult age, and like that's what I love to read. I love to read new adult. Like I finally feel like I found my people, and like I'm also 23 now, so there's nothing wrong with reading YA as an adult, but it's like I want to read about people my age. I want to read about the same struggles that I have. I want to read about people who struggle with feeling like adults and they still feel like a child, and like they love teen dramas and YA books. Like I want to read about those, my people, basically, you know. I want to read about people who like don't have like their 9-to-5 jobs and their big girl jobs, and are like struggling to find it and like struggling to find themselves and things like that. And it's like we don't really have a lot of that, and we're starting to get it now. And like that's also why I don't read YA anymore, because I was reading YA because no one was making new adult a genre until people started to say, I'm gonna make new adult a genre. And so I had finally found my people when new adult came along. So I do feel like new adult kind of pushed out people who don't read YA anymore, because I'm sorry, but I can't read about people who are in high school forever, and like I can't read like, and honestly in these books they barely even go to class, let's be real here. But it's like I can't read about people who are high school ages forever. And I mean, I could, there's nothing wrong with that if you want to, but I personally just cannot. And like, you might be able to connect with a person who with a character who's 17, and that's totally fine. I kind of just want a character, like, I feel uncomfortable like liking a character, like being like Carden is like my book boyfriend, or Peter Kavinsky are my book boyfriends, but I feel less uncomfortable because Peter Kavinsky has been my, like, he's followed me. Like, I read Peter Kavinsky when I was 16, so like it makes more sense for me to be like, Peter Kavinsky is my book boyfriend. Or like Carden, I read Carden when I was around the age of YA genre, so I was like, oh, Carden's my book boyfriend. But I rarely ever say that anymore because technically these characters are teenagers, and that makes me really uncomfortable. So then you could read a romance with like a really lovable like character and you're like, this is my book boyfriend, the character's 17. Personally, I kind of find that it's like fine, but then when you start to get into like some sexualizing and things like that, that's when it starts to get weird. Yeah. But basically what I'm saying, to say is I don't read YA anymore because new adult is now a genre, and I found my people and things that I can relate to. And like people in college, like, I love reading about people in college, even though I'm not in college. I've never been to college. Well, I mean, I took a semester in college, but like, I'm not in college, like whatever. But it's fun reading my people, my age, getting my smut. It is fun, I'm not gonna lie. Fantasy, romance, fantasy romance, technically like that is like my genre now. And it's like, I love new adult genre, and like I've kind of been like reading, I've been doing this experiment. It's not really like a full experiment, it's like not like a reading vlog thing, but I've been like, they are in some of my reading vlogs. Like, you'll notice in some of my reading vlogs I'm still reading YA, and it's because I'm still trying to like test the waters and see, like, you know, like I really want to get like a full answer on why I don't read YA anymore, even though I'm pretty sure my full answer is because new adult's a genre now, and I've been waiting for it to be a genre all my life. But mostly because it's like, you have books like Six of Crows and the Gilded Wolves, which are two books that I kind of shouldn't be putting together because y'all know how people were like, these are the same books even though they're not. Those, I remember reading both of those and being like, these should be adult books, especially the Gilded Wolves. The characters were 19. Like, that should have been a new adult book, but it wasn't because publishers are scared to make new adult a genre, which makes no sense to me because people only, I don't want to say people only read it, but for me, I was only reading YA because new adult wasn't a genre. So it's like, you know, and like I'm doing this experiment where I'm still reading YA books. I'm reading YA contemporary and YA fantasy and all these other genres, and I'm trying to see like, what is it really. And I'm honestly, in this experiment, I'm finding that the books are just boring. The books are just boring. The characters are uninteresting. They are very like, they are one-dimensional. And like, I'm also trying to see like, okay, well maybe it's kind of like, you know, my experiment that I had with YA contemporary last year. Like, so I'm trying to read old YA contemporary and new YA contemporary, and honestly I think it's just when you're a teen you find it very interesting, but as adult I don't. Like, that's what I have to say. Like, a good example is Carvo. I don't want to say when you're just a teen, but when you're reading YA. So I've been out of YA for a good, I still read YA here and there, but I've been out of YA for a good 2 years now. I've been reading adult fantasy for almost like 3 years, I want to say, maybe. I will say 2 years exact though, 2 years specifically. But I read Caraval before I got into before I got into adult fantasy, and I gave it 4 stars. I thought the book was very interesting. I thought it was fun, whatever. I reread Caraval because I wanted to read the rest of the series, and I hadn't read it in a while. I hated the book. I absolutely hated it. I hated the main character. I thought that she was a terrible character. I thought that she was annoying. She never listened to Julian, who was always telling her like, hey, don't do this, don't tell people why you're here, don't do this, and she would do it anyways. Or there's even like, her sister was abused by her father, and Scarlett felt like she like when she would tell people about Tella, her sister, she would make it seem like they're like the best of friends, like they love each other and all this stuff, but then internally she would be thinking about Tella, and like she would basically, it almost was as she was like victim blaming her sister and being like, well, if you didn't do this, our dad wouldn't do this to you. And like, I didn't catch those things. And I'm not saying that like when you read this book, when you read a book like a YA book you can't point out these things, or you're dumb, or you're stupid, or you can never acknowledge these things. Absolutely not. But it's like, I didn't care about the romance, so I didn't have, like, for me, when I read, if I love a romance, I don't care about anything else that's going on. I thought the romance was interesting the first time I read it. The second time, I realized it's very insta-lovey. It took a course of 5 days, and they fell in love in like 4 days. I thought it was uninteresting. I did find Legend very like mysterious, and I wanted to know more about him, but in the end, I really didn't care. And I did like Legend and Tella together, but also I didn't really care. So it's like, I just didn't like, so I didn't care about these tropes, so my eyes were open to everything else. This is just how I feel. So I don't really want to speak for other people, but I know, at least for me, because I didn't care about the romance, my eyes were open, and I was just kind of just like, and I feel like that's been happening. I read 6 Crimson Cranes, and I thought the book was interesting and fun, but also that book kind of is different because it has a journey in it. And same with the book by the previous series by the, and same with Spin the Dawn. Like, I thought it was like so interesting, but then it had a journey, and then I was like, And I don't like a lot of journey books, but I think it's just in YA, because when you have journey books in YA, they don't do anything. It's not fun. It's literally just them walking through the woods the entire book, and like, that's just not interesting to me. So I am going to be ending the video here because the food is ready and I am hungry. But I'm saying this all to say that I personally don't read YA anymore, because new adult is now becoming a genre. Whether publishers want to make it a genre or not, whether bookstores want to make it a genre or not, authors are still publishing under the new adult genre. And now I feel like I found something that I can relate to, people my age. And that's fine if you want to read YA and you're not that age. So comment your opinions, comment why you don't read YA anymore, and your thoughts, and the whole 9. I'm hungry. I'm about to go eat. But yes, thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I have a bunch of good videos coming in July, so y'all might want to stay tuned for that. Join my channel membership, and I'll see you guys in the next video.